Well, the financial sector continues to be dominated by men, but the position of women in the labour market can and must be improved, notably in the financial sector. My guests today to discuss representation of women in the financial sector are THABI LEOKA, economic strategist at Argon Asset Management, and Caren Rennie from Citadel. Thank you so much for your time today. THABI, we see you a lot on the program. We see you quoted in newspapers and so on when it comes to economic matters. Tell us how it all started for you.
So it started in 2001 at Investec Asset Management. That was my first employment, and there were not many women then. And I believe there are not enough women even today, many years later.
What made you study this particular field?
So my brother was actually the one who had a prospectus to the London School of Economics, and I paged through it, this little book, and I thought, this is exactly what I want to do. And that's because it included just, not just statistical work, but how the world operates, the economy, a bit of politics, how things influence each other.
Okay.
And so it was something that I was interested in, and I thought that I can influence a few things in the way I think, and also I can make a lot of sense about how many things from politics to manufacturing sector to retail sector, and how all of those influence an economy. And
interplay with each other as well. Let's bring Caren into this conversation. Tell us a bit about your journey. Why are you so passionate about women financial participation?
I think it started as young as 18 for me. I remember when I first left home to move in with my now husband. My mom said to me, my darling, if there's one piece of advice I could give you, that is to have a secret bank account. And I'll never forget that, and I think that was sort of her way of giving me financial advice. She'd been stuck in an unhappy marriage for as long as I can remember. And I think looking at this, it made me fiercely determined to make sure that, I would always remain financially independent. So I think that fueled the first step that we took in our business about 6 years ago to actually start a strategy into the female market to talk to women around taking finances into their own hands.
And I want to talk a little bit about that, because it's interesting, the socialization that women have that is different to men when it comes to financial matters. We are seriously lagging behind. Why do you think that is?
I think most of us have grown up in a home where, our fathers were probably responsible for money in the home. When you leave home, often it happens that the partner takes ownership of that role. So it's a space that a lot of women are uncomfortable with. And also what we've learned in working at Citadel with women is how many women shy away from that conversation. Then you'll be surprised, even women who hold very top positions in businesses, they don't want to go there, because also family and career also come first.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, THABI, because even when you look at some studies, they say that when women are being interviewed for a job, they don't go to the money. They talk about the role, they talk about where they want to be positioned in the organization, what they want to do for the organization. The money question doesn't arise. The men start there.
Which is, I think it's how we are socialized, and also historically. I mean, women only got to vote very recently. We only took leadership roles also very recently. Discussions about money are quite new to us as well. So it is a new area of discussion, and many women find it very uncomfortable. I watched an interview on an international news agent, and they had a female so a woman, she was applying for a job, and her male counterpart doing the same thing. And the difference, even in body language, the guy was more aggressive, and the woman seemed very apologetic and very happy to be there. And I think that needs to change before we start seeing assertion from both male and female, or equal on equal levels.
And how important is it to see other women in senior positions in the organizations that you work in, or in the sector that you're in, that then motivates one to move up that ladder?
I think it's crucially important. We won't get women in the financial sector or at least more women, if we don't have women in leadership. And I think that women in leadership are really great role models. They should open up for younger people, younger women especially. And there's also, women are more understanding of a lot of women issues. For instance, falling pregnant and taking leave or having to deal with a sick child. It's easier for a woman boss to understand this because it's highly likely that she's been in the same position. Sometimes your male boss may not sympathize in the same way as a female boss would.
Because she'd have the empathy potentially to do that. Tell us a little bit about Citadel's female strategy.
So a few of us women in the business just felt, that women need a different conversation when it comes to money. And we were also noticing this groundswell of female empowerment shaping South Africa a few years back, and we really wanted to be part of that story. So one day we just decided, let's host an intimate dinner. Let's get some like-minded, successful women in business around a dinner table, and let's create a warm environment for women to start talking around money, because women's social currency is conversation and story sharing. Yeah. For most of us who may have had an experience of financial advice, it may have been a male in a pinstripe suit coming to sell us a product. Yeah. For us at Citadel, it's about bringing purpose to your money. It's about understanding where you're at, what are the dynamics in the family, what are your long-term dreams, your goals, your aspirations, and how do we build that long-term strategy to make sure that you and your family are going to be okay.
Okay, and how has that changed the way that the business then functions, that now you actually are focusing on those issues that some might deem soft, but are actually at the core of who we are as human beings?
I think the end result when we deal with women in terms of their investment plan may be the same. I think it's how we get there. Interestingly, you were just on adding to what THABI was saying, we did a survey among some of the clients, female clients in our business, and we asked them, would you prefer dealing with a male advisor or with a female advisor? Yeah. And 63% said they would prefer dealing with women. And why? Because we get it. We understand each other. When we're talking about having to allow for shoes and handbags and clothing and makeup in our long-term cash flow, we get it and we understand each other.
Okay, and that's interesting, again, because I think I'm the same. I prefer to deal with the woman because then we almost finish each other's sentences as well. Well, let's talk a little bit about the workplace, right? And I think we've mentioned a little bit of that, but I look around, THABI, I speak to a lot of brokers, I speak to a lot of chief economists and so on. Those chief economists largely male still. Is this going to start changing? What's your sense of the financial services landscape?
I hope it changes, and it all starts with, I guess it starts with the home and having positive role models within the family setting. And also at university, a lot of women choose soft topics. I mean, I was a victim of that initially. Like my undergrad was also, I didn't know what I was going to do, and I never thought I'd be in the financial sector. And I had a younger brother, actually, who was very interested in it. And I thought, hey, I must actually just follow the money. And ironically, my thesis at Wits, my master's thesis, was on money laundering. And part of the money laundering is follow the money. And I just thought it was so interesting. And then I realized also a lot of women don't follow the money or look at financial services as a sector that they would be interested in. And that's why you have fewer women. But once you see women in the financial sector, and that's been my experience, a lot of women have come to me, younger women, only because they've seen me in this position. And unfortunately, what happens in financial services is that you still have the old white male who's still the chief economist. And I remember when I was younger thinking, does this man have to die before I get there? And I see it now with a lot of the financial institutions where there are many, many young female economists who have been there for many years, but yet they're not given a position to actually stand up and make comments in the media. And that's one way of also marketing yourself. But also on the flip side, there are more female economists than there are male economists.
This is part of my issue as well, because you find that at university, right, I remember my economics class, we were half-half. What happens then is that we then all go and maybe get jobs and you get into employment. But then when you start to see the rise, the women stay here, the men climb up there. We need some interventions, obviously, in this regard.
Yeah, definitely, because I think also there's many studies about the importance of having women in the workplace, and not just for other women. I think that it is true that women think slightly differently and can be very positive for, especially for a sector which is driven by sentiment, by sometimes irrational behavior, and sometimes
so you
need
don't
someone
want
to just
think, right?
Exactly, and sometimes you just need people who can, and I think women have this more than men. They tend to take longer to think through things because they just don't act on, just on information brashly. So women tend to take some time to think over things, and sometimes you need that in the financial sector.
You also have gender mainstreaming awards. Tell us a little bit about that, Caren.
Citadel was part of the launch of the 30% Club. I know that you're going to be chatting to Colleen a little bit later.
Yeah.
And for us it was just important to really show that we support gender equality in the workplace. Just a lovely story to add on to what THABI was saying earlier. One of my colleagues, I remember when she came back from maternity leave after having twins, and she was initially planning in our business, which is going to see new clients to get them on board, and then we hand them over to what we call a manager. And interestingly, she said at the time when she came back, she no longer wanted to plan because that was more like a hunting activity. Now having children at home, what was important for her was much more of a nurturing role. And I think what is really critical in corporates is to be able to, if they want and they believe that they want more women as part of their team, they need to be able to morph and to create spaces for women to find their,
where they work best.
Exactly, because we shift when we have children. Things change at home. Flexibility becomes important. And as women, I think we are drawn to corporates where there's more collaborative conversation, where there's more inclusivity, where flexibility is critical, and it's much more of a family type of environment. And I think that if that shifts, we'll also find that more women will be more excited to take up positions in the financial space.
Thank you so much to both of you for your time today. THABI LEOKA, economic strategist, I can't say that now, at Argon Asset Management, and Caren Rennie from Citadel. After